Well, the 21st century is where everything changes, and Brenda and Reese are ready. Welcome back to another Big Finish Torchwood Main range review. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the February 2022 release, which is of course Sonny, as written by Lizzie Hopley. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website. The physical CD is £10.99 and the download is £8.99, and you can also purchase this story as a part of a bundle with the latest Torchwood Main range releases. So this episode is all about artificial intelligence and robotics being implemented into our day-to-day lives, which funnily enough is in fact a topic that I'm recently studying as a part of my degree. So it's rather nice to have a Torchwood story which kind of takes me out of my education, while simultaneously I can use it as a little bit of revision. It is also nice to see the husband of Gwen returning, who is of course Rhys Williams. He has had a number of Torchwood stories in the past, including the likes of Visiting Hours, which I'm sure is in fact one of my first ever Torchwood Main range reviews. So it's very nice to see his character returning, especially given that this story delves into the relationship between himself and his mother. We get to know more about him as a character in a rather difficult situation, while simultaneously doing a mission for Torchwood. As always with the Torchwood Main range, this release does in fact contain some adult material which is not suitable for younger listeners. Rhys and his mum Brenda are on a mission for Torchwood. As Brenda enters the Glade Water retirement home, they are greeted by Sonny, the helpful servant robot. The home has been chosen as the trial site before the robots are launched nationally, but are humans ready for servant artificial intelligence? Lizzie Hopley has penned a rather personal story, commentating on a very human problem. How do we support our loved ones as they become older, and what services are available to help? Beyond this, I love a Big Finish audio drama which takes a seemingly normal aspect of society and starts to unpick it, looking at the fundamental elements as to why things happen and why humans act how we do. I think by looking at the cover art for this story, you instantly get a picture of what this story is about. Some probably crazy robots who everybody loves and then they turn bad. We then question, has technology gone too far? And then most probably switch off the machine and throw away the technology at the end of the story. Except Sonny works a little bit differently. Without telling you too much, the story isn't aimed about killer robots, it's not about technology going wrong, and it's not about evil AI as a villain. Sonny presents a story about how we as people bring technology into our lives, into our homes, and how by giving the AI information, we sometimes might not like what we get in return. A brilliant example of this is the Alexa. The vast majority of people have them in their homes, and initially people were quite sceptical, and yet now they seem to be a part of everyday life. I felt that this was a rather refreshing approach, but at the same time does have a few of the usual artificial intelligence narrative tropes in there, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. As well as delving into the world of AI, Lizzie nicely draws on elements of technology addiction, and simply how obsessed we are with our phones. Funnily enough, this episode comes at a really good time for me, as recently I've been getting quite frustrated at myself over how reliant I've become on my phone. Not because I spend so much time flicking through my feed or anything like that, but simply how the vast majority of tasks in my life can be very easily done via my phone, the likes of checking emails, checking that I'm in the right place at the right time on my calendar, and virtually everything else. It's very, very hard to avoid using it. Kai Owen performs brilliantly as Rhys, and as always I enjoy a Big Finish audio drama which digs into the life of characters who we may not have had much time dedicated to on screen. As always with Big Finish and life generally, everyone has a story to tell, and I think that the Torchwood Main range do a great example of showing that. The beauty about artificial intelligence is that humanity is seemingly obsessed with it. We are obsessed with technology, we are obsessed with developments, and it is the reason why the likes of the Cybermen exist within the Doctor Who universe, which are of course a race which kind of strive for perfection and the latest upgrade, and worryingly in society today, we are very similar to that. We always want the latest model of phone, we always want the latest model of tech, and this story kind of sees the implementation of AI within day-to-day life and essentially replacing the carers who look after our parents and our grandparents in retirement homes with a robot as opposed to a real-life human being. And at first you may think, well, there's that human element taken away, there is that emotional interaction. However, over time, as we see throughout this episode, the artificial intelligence adapts to that human. It gets to know that human very much like an algorithm does within the likes of picking your latest shows on Netflix, or even the Alexa knowing what favourite songs you like. It's one of those things that learns and adapts to its user, and this episode really nicely displays that. Artificial intelligence is also seen as something that is almost perfection in a way. I think that humans always strive for the latest model, and this story has that lovely comparison between humans, with the likes of Reese, and then Sonny, the artificial intelligence. And as we see throughout this episode, when Brenda wants support from her son, having many other people in her life now gone their own path, Brenda is relying on Reese to kind of bring her things within life, even if it's just a little bit of company or even some physical, tangible items into her life just to make her life a little bit easier. But Reese has a busy life in himself. He will forget he has his own employment, he has a family to look after. So as a result, you see Brenda starting to rely on the artificial intelligence because the artificial intelligence doesn't have a life, it doesn't have a family to go back to. So as a result, Brenda can always rely on Sonny to do the things that she wants in life. His bond with his mother is very truthful, but also strained under the pressures of life. Nerys Hughes absolutely steals the show as Brenda Williams. Her performance is so realistic and yet very emotional. A character who is coming to terms with the end of life due to being in this retirement home and surrounded by people who are also contemplating the same thing, and the realisation that those around her either don't support her as much as they used to because they've got their lives of their own, or simply the other negative people in her life who simply don't care. In times of loneliness, it can be easy to want company from anyone, or in this case, anything, including the robot that you once didn't want to talk to at all. Sonny is an interesting creation. Admittedly, the plot at times does fall into the usual template, and I think seeing an AI feed off the data given to it by humans and getting progressively more and more intelligent is a rather common trope within artificial intelligence stories, but at the same time, it's quite vital for an episode to do this, showing how it can adapt and develop to the human user. The script delivers on this element through clever uses of wording, misdirection, jokes, and awkwardly timed laughter, which is in fact quite funny, and it makes you question exactly what Sonny's intentions are. In summary, for Torchwood Sonny, as written by Lizzie Hopley, if you are a fan of technology dramas or commentaries on our forever developing digital world, this story is most certainly for you. Lizzie tackles the use of artificial intelligence in an accessible, non-convoluted way, whilst telling a great emotional story with brilliant characters. The main cast and extras bring the bleakness of the retirement home to life, and this makes for a perfect backdrop to sit a technology-based narrative within, with the older generation who are usually not known as being too tech-savvy, alongside most probably their children who have put them in the home in the first place, whilst carrying on their usual tech-dedicated lives. The ending of the episode captures the personality of the leads well, and since Torchwood has placed Reese and Brenda on this mission in the first place, it will be great to see Gwen, Reese and Brenda have a story together in the future. Worryingly, at the very start of the story, and when you think of this actually being implemented in reality, you think it wouldn't happen. It would not happen at all, because people wouldn't let it happen. But I like the way that this story has that point-blank refusal at the very beginning. But those people who are within the retirement home start to rely on this technology in order to bring them happiness. And I think that is interesting because it shows that no matter what of humanity, when you introduce something, there is a certain aspect of society that will adapt it into their day-to-day lives and become more reliant on it. And I think that is something that is very sort of true to reality, a little bit worrying at the same time, especially given how much that we rely on technology today, as I've mentioned throughout this review. But it also makes for a very interesting story with great sci-fi potential, especially when you have this artificial intelligence that is learning, and you start to question, is Sonny a real person? Does Sonny actually exist? Is it more than just an algorithm? Because it has learnt off a human, it has learnt what it likes, it has learnt what it dislikes. So as a result, at what point does Sonny start thinking for himself? So we have that lovely sci-fi element in there, especially in the later half of the story, which I thoroughly enjoyed listening to. Thank you very much for watching this review of Torchwood Sonny. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for regular Doctor Who content. Of course, on that note, have a nice day. I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.